Everybody, thanks for joining me in the record room today for another installment of Reggae Spinout, records either new to the collection or that have seen a listen again recently with a focus on the reggae genre. My name's Doug if you're new here. We're going to get started right off the bat with a dub album that originally came out in 1982 on Trojan Records in the UK, was reissued a few years back by Music on Vinyl. It is called Scientist and Jammy Strike Back, obviously referencing a certain science fiction film of the early 1980s, credited to the Roots Radix Band and produced by Linval Thompson. Linval was a singer turned producer who was maybe one of the few to rival Henry Junjo Laws at this time, the top producer, using the same band as Laws, the Roots Radix, unquestionably the top session band of the early 1980s, using the same studio, Channel 1, and even the same mixing engineers, Scientist and Prince Jammy. Just a side note, Scientist has contested this credit, I do believe, claiming that he has mixed all of the tracks on here, a bit murky on that score, and as I've said, this is a Music on Vinyl reissue. Linval Thompson Productions here, dubs to tracks such as the classic Big Ship by Freddie McGregor, title track of his album produced by Linval Thompson, which appeared on Green Sleeves in the UK. Also a dub to Rootsman Skanking, another track on here, as well as Linval Thompson's own Baby Father and many other productions here remixed into hard-hitting dub versions, all with sci-fi themed titles such as Storming the Death Star, Buck Rogers in the Black Hole, The Death of Mr. Spock, leaving no sci-fi franchise untouched here, colorful cover art. These sort of dub albums were popular at the time. They were basically a UK creation, compiled and thematically put together in the UK, not conceived of as such as albums in Jamaica, but becoming classics of the genre nonetheless. Essential dub album, Scientist and Jammy Strike Back in dub. Arriving just in time for Mother's Day and somewhat on the theme of mothers, I got in a compilation from the UK of late 1960s Duke Reid produced Rocksteady sides from the vaults of his Treasure Isle label in Jamaica. Rocksteady was a relatively brief phase of the music which flourished between about 1966 and 1968, coming right before reggae proper and producing a staggering amount of ineffably beautiful, magical music, of which Duke Reid's Treasure Isle label is considered a cornerstone. The compilation Mama Peckings and the Duchess is framed as a tribute to two mothers and came on the Peckings label in the UK originally in 2003 upon the death of Mama Peckings. Peckings Music City Blank. Peckings is a legendary record shop on Askew Road in London, also a label which the last couple of decades has seen productions of new music, somewhat updating the rocksteady and reggae vibes of the past. It was founded by George Price, aka Daddy Peckings, who had been in Jamaica a close friend and confidant of Duke Reid's chief rival, Coxsone Dodd, founder of Studio One, before emigrating to the UK, setting up the Peckings record shop, from which he would educate a generation of white English reggae fans in reggae and Studio One in particular, among them David Rodigan, Steve Barrow, and other notables. What's less well known is the role his wife played, Gertrude Price, aka Mama Peckings. She had actually run businesses, served food and refreshments at dances in Jamaica, was the first to arrive in the UK in 1959 with a bag of records to sell, encouraging George to follow suit, and she encouraged him by 1974 to set up the brick and mortar Peckings record shop, all while continuing to work, raise her family, and following her passing in 2002, her sons Duke Peckings and Chris put out Mama Peckings and the Duchess, while her husband George Price, Daddy Peckings, had close ties with Cox and Dodd. Their mother, Gertrude Price, Mama Peckings, was a close friend of Mrs. Lucille Reed, Duke Reed's wife. So the family had strong ties to the two main producers in Jamaica. Following Daddy Peckings' death in the 1990s, the Peckings family put out a tribute to him, including some rare and classic Studio One sides. For the tribute to their mother, they focused on the Treasure Isle catalog to bring into light her connection to the Reed family, her longtime friendship with Mrs. Lucille Reed, widow of Duke Reed, who actually passed away about a year before her. Here you get some well-known Treasure Isle productions that will appear on many other compilations. There have been many out there. One of the most expansive ones is the Treasure Isle Story, a 4-disc compilation that came out through Trojan, but few will have the personal connection to the music and the people behind it as this one, as well as well-known tracks like Girl, I've Got a Date by Alton Ellis, Phyllis Dillon's A Thing of the Past, Joya Landis's Angel of the Morning. You get maybe a bit more obscure songs. Tony and Dennis's Folk Song, apparently one of the very first songs ever to be released by Trojan Records, which itself took its name from Duke Reed's nickname, the Trojan. You get some instrumentals. Woman a Come by rumba dancer Margarita, I think the only song she ever recorded before her untimely murder at the hands of her lover, trombonist Don Drummond, founding member of the Scatolites. You also get some obscurities, being Peckings, deeply immersed in the music. One I had never heard before is Revelation by Mind, Body, and Soul. Brilliant tune, worth the price of admission alone. Beautiful and very affectionate tribute to two mothers from the sons of Mama Peckings, and also including her longtime friend, Mrs. Lucille Reed.
I said the world is coming to an end. I said repent and pray. Oh yeah, before it's too late. I tell you, long ago, Lamia, we don't come here to make adoration, no. We come here to preach revelation, and no, long ago, Lamia. We don't come here to make adoration, no. We come here to preach revelation. We keep
Another relatively recent arrival, one that had been missing from my collection until now, the debut album by reggae singer Rod Taylor, If Josh Should Come Now, originally released 1979 on the Belva label. This is a reissue from 2016 out of France, I believe. Belva, a label founded by reggae DJ, singer, producer Prince Hammer, aka Barris Simpson, longtime resident of Manchester, UK, now I believe. Rod Taylor, something of a journeyman reggae singer in the 1970s. He had been in a short-lived vocal group called The Aliens alongside Johnny Lee and Barry Brown, who would go on to become quite a big star. Rod Taylor began to build a name for himself through hits like Ethiopian Kings for the Freedom Sounds label and the essential His Imperial Majesty for Mikey Dread's Dread at the Controls label, included on Rocker's Vibration. Rod Taylor's His Imperial Majesty, perhaps his best known song. Barris Simpson, Prince Hammer, came into contact with Taylor, took it upon himself to produce his debut LP, almost entirely roots and culture themed, but with something of a raw, nasal timbre to his voice, which was beginning to crop up in several of the younger, up-and-coming roots reggae singers at this time. Prince Hammer shopped the label around in the UK to Greensleeves Records, but they declined it, so he put it out himself on his own Belva label. Turned out to be a big hit, which had Greensleeves scrambling to record their own Rod Taylor album. They would get in touch with producer Henry Junjo Laws in Jamaica, himself a friend of Prince Hammer's, Barris Simpson's, who Prince Hammer had helped get a start in producing and in releasing his product in the UK. They would hastily record and release Where Is Your Love, Mankind for release on Greensleeves, but it would not be as successful as the one Prince Hammer had recorded, the debut album, If Jah Should Come Now. One of many sort of journeyman reggae singers of the 1970s who pursued a course of cover versions, polished, romantic-oriented material aimed squarely at the uptown market, the crossover overseas market, was Jimmy London, born Trevor Shaw. I believe he is a cousin to the Mighty Diamonds' Donald Tabby Shaw. He had been one half of a vocal duo called The Inspirations, who recorded a song in 1968 for Lee Perry called Tighten Up. The song was a huge hit on the UK market and would lend its title to an iconic series of recent hits samplers from Trojan Records, Tighten Up, the lead-off song on the first volume, Tighten Up by The Inspirations, which for some reason was credited to the Untouchables in the UK. The Inspirations, back to their real name, would record one LP for Joe Gibbs after leaving Lee Perry before going their separate ways. The other singer would be known on record as Billy Dice. Trevor Shaw, meanwhile, would adopt the Jimmy London stage name. He would do one solo album called Bridge Over Troubled Water in 1972, covering the Simon Garfunkel song, heavy on the cover versions, heavy, very soulful voice, kind of tremulous. In 1978, he would reemerge after that first solo album with his second effort, Welcome to My World. Gorgeous cover art here, big selling feature, kind of looks like a tourist ad from Jamaica. Party in full swing here, everybody having a good time, but there's somewhat of a pensive note to his vocals. This was released in the UK by the Burning Sounds label. Again, cover versions here. The title track is a Jim Reeves song, but it's recorded at Channel 1 with the house band The Revolutionaries, so you get a bit of the downtown grit with Jimmy London's uptown polish. There's a little bit of social commentary he slides in. The title track, Ride On, says we're having a party tonight, but leave your gun and your ratchet or knife at home. Just bring your loved one and let the music rock your soul. Thank the Lord is kind of a song of praise, but he warns of the judgment to come as the leaders turn their backs on the people and war and famine descend on the land. But pensive, sort of romantic material, a bit of note of melancholy in the party proceedings. Jimmy London. I have one further LP by him, which came after this, a year later, Crying in the Ghetto, on the Rootsman label. Jimmy London, unsung journeyman reggae singer.
Welcome to my world. Won't you come on in? Miracles again still happens now and then. Step into my heart. Leave your cares behind. Welcome to my world. Built with you in mind.
That's going to do it for today, guys. Thanks for joining me. I have several other new reggae arrivals to share with you, so stay tuned for future videos. Until then, take care and cheers.